Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual fireside chat with Lori Hatcher, marketer and business leader at Truss Beverage Co. for discussion on her inspiring journey as an entrepreneur, how she helped build Truss's portfolio of brands from scratch in an entirely new category and the cannabis beverages industry as a whole. Having spent over 20 years shaping some of the world's most iconic brands, Truss provided Lori with a unique opportunity to bring together her passion for brand building, disciplined skills in CPG marketing, and her startup know-how to shape an entirely new category of beverages. Under Lori's leadership, Truss launched a whole new class portfolio of cannabis beverages in August of 2020, in the middle of a global pandemic, and built consumers at the core. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, Lori.
Thank you so much, Chantel. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So just some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Please make sure to ask your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll open up an audience Q&A at the very end of this hour. So thank you so much again for your time, and I'll jump right into it. We keep asking these questions to all our guests. How are you? How have you been holding up during the pandemic?
Well, I have to say that being in cannabis is a whirlwind to begin with, but launching a cannabis company during a global pandemic is can only be described as a roller coaster. But right now, I'm feeling a lot of hope. So one of the things we do at Truss is we focus on the little victories. So I can share two. So from a business standpoint, I think our biggest little victory is the team at Truss. We launched a new category, a new company, and a portfolio of brands last summer. So in the depths of the global pandemic, we brought great brands to Canada, and within 3 months, we had over a 50 share of the category. So I just have been so inspired by this team and what we did in really, really tough times and the resiliency. And then like on the personal side, I would say my biggest little victory is I have a son. He is 13. And my biggest hope last year was that he would get to start high school in person. And that has happened. He is thriving. He's loving it. So that's made me really, really happy. And not to mention getting together with friends and family again on patios over drinks and dinner. So it's been tough. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm feeling a lot of hope as we're heading into the fall.
Oh, definitely. It's feeling good. It's feeling like things are slowly getting back to normal. And the fact that your son can go back to school, I think that's such a huge milestone, right? I remember starting high school and thinking, not even have to worry about if I could go or not, right? So
exactly,
he's in a good now. That's so great. And it's Halloween, so we were talking about earlier about Halloween and how people are dressing up, and with like TikTok and everything kind of going on right now in the world. Like I'm pretty sure a lot of people are getting dressed up and ripping up for Halloween this weekend.
Yeah. Even though they're high schoolers, I'm encouraging them to go out because they missed out last year. So
definitely. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about your career. How did you land at Truss?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty diverse career in marketing, starting 20 years ago, and I've had the privilege to work on what I think are some of the most powerful and iconic brands in the world. So I got to work on Cheerios, Pillsbury, Betty Crocker, Old El Paso. I had the wonderful opportunity to work at Canada Goose, a Canadian grown brand. And my passion my entire career has been understanding the consumer and building brands that delight them. And so come to, 5 years ago, cannabis is going to be legalized. And a lot of marketers were considering whether they should make the jump from, more traditional marketing and CPG into the cannabis space. And what I always said is that I want to be at the company that's going to build the Cheerios of cannabis. Not the mill. If you think of like the cereal analogy, not the mill that made the oats. I want to be the company that's going to build the Cheerios for consumers. And so I spoke to a few organizations, and it wasn't really quite the right fit. And then Truss called. And so Truss is all about putting the consumer first. Truss was all about the opportunity to build a company, a portfolio of brands from scratch, and to do it right here in Canada. And I have to say, as a Canadian business leader, there's not many opportunities where you get to build something from scratch. So when I heard about the opportunity, I just couldn't say no. And I have to say the last 3 years have been some of the most challenging of my career, but definitely also the most rewarding.
Oh, that's such a great story. I mean, there's so much when you have so much experience and with all these amazing brands like Canada Goose, for example, we just hosted an event with them this week. Like they're doing such amazing things. And
Yeah.
to be able to work with such established brands and to grow from there and create kind of your own journey, it's so inspiring. So, what experiences would you say throughout your career have helped shape your business style right now?
Um, there's one story that I'd love to share because it happened to me at the very start of my career, and I think about it every day, and it inspires me every day. So I started my marketing career. I was an assistant marketing manager on Lucky Charms, and we had a vice president of marketing who, at any given moment of the day, would stop you in a hall, stop you in the cafeteria, or show up in your queue and say, "Lori, what's your big idea today?" And he wanted to know the big ideas we had that would shape the future of the business. And so he really taught me to think about those big ideas that will create the new and different to unlock growth. At first, I did it because a little bit scary when your VP is coming and asking you the question, you want an answer. But over 20 years, what that taught me so early is that is the question. That's the key question. As a marketer, it's the key question as a business leader. What's your big idea? How are you going to create the new and different to unlock growth in your area of the business? How are you going to delight consumers? And so it's something I think about every day. I talk about to my team, and I've brought to kind of every opportunity I've had. What is that big idea that's going to unlock growth? And so that is one of the single biggest moments and experiences that has influenced my entire career. I know, no matter where I've been and what kind of category or brand I've been on.
So do you consider him a key, factor and kind of leader and mentor almost in your, early stages of your career? Would you think of him as a mentor today?
Yeah, I really do. I'm still I still think about that, like I said, every day. And I've been really, really lucky actually to have some amazing mentors throughout my career that have helped shape and kind of lead me to where I am. I'm really privileged in that way.
Yeah, definitely. So how would you help encourage the next generation of leaders, of business, entrepreneurs, anyone that wanted to get into the marketing industry? What would you say to encourage them to get started?
Yeah, that's like a really, really big question. I think I can start with something that sounds really simple, but is actually hard. And it is what I believe it is to be a marketer. So what I would say is if you want to get in the marketing career, you need to do 3 things. One, you need to care and know about your consumer better than anyone else. You need to know who your consumer is, what drives them, and care about them deeply. That's the most important thing. The second is you need to build products that meet their needs or their wants and that delight them. And then thirdly, it's really about you need to be remarkable. Brands need to have a purpose. Brands need to have a strong point of view. They need to be remarkable. And when I say remarkable, it meaning people will remark upon them. And so those are the 3 things, if you're interested in marketing, that will lead to a really, really successful career. And it sounds easy, but it's challenging. But if that's what drives you, if that's what you're interested in, then you can have a big career. And then, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. And then, what I'd say is, when you're trying to figure out what company is right for you, really know yourself, know your strengths, know your values, choose really, really carefully where you're going and make sure that place matches up with your strengths and your values. And it is a place where you can be authentic and an authentic leader. That's kind of some of the advice I give when I talk to younger people hoping to start their career.
Definitely. And I think, there are some challenges, in terms of what you go through, having to work with different people and clients and
Yeah.
managing through that. So is there any additional advice that you would, maybe offer to young entrepreneurs entering this world of marketing?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think I said it, but really, really know yourself. This took me a long time. When I started, it was over 20 years ago, and there was more men than women in the business world at that time. And I kind of felt like I had to fit a mold that wasn't myself. So I'd say up to like the first 10 years of my career, I wasn't really authentically Lori. And so I would have loved the advice to really like understand who you are, what your strengths are, and what you need to do to be authentic earlier, that I didn't have to fit in a mold. So that would be the first thing. It's really, really important to do your work and make sure that you're in a company that embraces that and where you can be your authentic self. Don't try to force yourself into somewhere that doesn't fit. And then the third is it's probably different, very different than maybe a lot of other leaders would say. The biggest moments in my career have actually come from the things that weren't planned. And so although I've always looked forward about, what I want and where I want to go, when opportunities have come to me, when someone believes in me and like given me something completely new and different, even if I was nervous, I would grab it. And those are, they were always hard. It was always a challenge. But when I look back, those were the biggest moments in my career, which I never would have planned. It never would have been on a 3-year, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. It was really seizing those opportunities, learning from them and growing, and then seeing where it brought me next. And I'm a big believer in that. And so that would be kind of my third piece of advice for someone starting out.
Yeah, and I feel like I can really relate to, what you're saying about your early stages and not really knowing who you are and trying to figure things out and saying yes to a lot of things and just wanting to grow from there. But I think that, learning from new experiences, but also a lot of challenges and maybe failing has also helped in becoming who you are today.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you clearly have a passion for entrepreneurship. Is this a career you've always sought for yourself?
Yeah, I would call myself more of a builder than entrepreneur. I have lots of friends who are entrepreneurs and they have courage and passion and resilience and to the next level, right? Starting their own businesses. So I would call myself a builder. And I think as I think back on my childhood, it's always who I was. I remember when I was 10 years old, I was on a swim team and I designed the bathing suits because I wasn't happy with our current bathing suits on our swim team. Always wanted to like create the new and different, build and do something new and different. The other thing that I was always really, really fascinated by was people. What makes them tick? What's their inner lives? What's important to them? And so it's kind of those two things, that building and creating combined with this fascination about people, that kind of brought me to the world of marketing. And it was such a really good fit. So, in more established company like the General Mills, building new campaigns for brands, new Canadian brands, repositioning brands for growth. And then all the way to Truss, where I was kind of took that building of really iconic brands into a world where, starting with nothing, we got to build an entire category, a whole new portfolio, from nothing. So I feel like all those things led me to Truss, and this opportunity to start with a blank slate, start with getting to know consumers, and then building a whole portfolio, company around that. I felt like the 20 years before it led me to that moment.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So Lori, do you think that there are ingredients that make for a great manager?
I really do. I think I don't believe being a great manager is just innate. I believe that it's a lot of work. And I believe that you can learn because I've learned. And I can be really vulnerable here. I think I was a pretty bad manager at the beginning. It kind of goes back to what I talked about, feeling like I had to lead in a way that fit a mold, which probably was a more like male dominated mold, and not knowing how to lead people in a way that was authentic to me. And I feel really, really blessed that I've been on a journey to become a better coach, manager, and leader through the last really 10 years. And that blessing started with, team members who cared about me, who gave me really, really candid feedback about what was working and really what I was doing that wasn't working for them. And from that moment, it was something I really, really wanted to focus on. How do you lead through others? How do you lead an organization and business through others? That's a way that's inspirational, that brings out their best. And I will say it's a journey. So for 10 years now, I've been focused on, how I can be the best leader and best manager. I believe it can be learned. I know I'm improving. I'm committed to continue to improve. And for me, it really has been about, one, the ability to be authentically Lori. So like vulnerable leadership style, honesty, candor. Number two, it's really about, leading with passion and inspiration. Like my passion's my biggest strength. Passion also, there's downside to it too. So really leading with passion in that really positive way. And then number three, hire people who are smarter than you. So I have amazing teams. They are exceptional. They are smarter than me in many, many different ways. That helps you actually be a better manager.
I love that. So you do believe that it can be taught, to be a great manager, but also
absolutely. Yeah. I think like I'd like to say, when I reflect upon myself, that it's something I've learned and will continue to learn. So I believe it can be taught.
Great. So tell us about the company. What does Truss do?
Sure. So yeah, we're a Truss Beverage Company. We are a cannabis infused beverage company. We are a joint venture with Molson Coors and Hexo, one of the largest LPs in Canada. And we operate independently. And so we have the largest portfolio of cannabis beverages in Canada. We have 6 brands now, because our 6th brand just launched on OCS yesterday, Bedfellows. Wow. And we have a portfolio of cannabis brands that meets the needs of really, really varied cannabis users. So I think a lot of people might think that the average cannabis user might be like a millennial male, urban. And when you look at cannabis consumers in Canada, it's actually super, super diverse. And so we spent our first year getting to know those cannabis consumers and building brands to meet their needs. So in our portfolio, we have everything from, I have one here, Little Victory. It's a low dose, like micro-dosed sparkling beverages. It's 2.5 milligrams. It's a wonderful light high. And we love it for that Friday night, or maybe replacing a glass of Prosecco. We have brands also, like one called XMG. That's for your more avid consumer, who wants a quick hit and a really a strong, like great flavor. It's in a little can. So that's XMG, and that's the largest brand in the category right now. A lot of cannabis users who have been in other categories and segments are coming into beverages because they see it meets the needs of new occasions. For example, socializing, where there might still be stigma to smoking, they can actually have a beverage. And then yesterday in Ontario, we launched our latest brand. It's called Bedfellows. And it's inspired by the concept of strange bedfellows, when two things come together that's unexpected. And this came directly from consumers. In the last 6 to 8 months, consumers have reached out, like craft consumers, and said, we'd really like a craft like product, but in cannabis. Are you able to launch something like that? So our amazing team went out and we met with tons of craft beverage producers from across North America, and found a great partner called Two Roots. And we're collaborating on this brand called Bedfellows with Hellas, an IPA inspired beverage. at a medium to high dose. And we're doing it directly out of consumer feedback. We're really excited about this brand. Like I said, it just launched yesterday, but the initial feedback and reviews are exceptional. So we're really excited about this one.
Yeah, that's such a great name. I think that's so interesting. So tell us a little bit more about, if you don't know too much or have experienced CIBs, was some information about the product that you can tell us a little bit more?
First of all, I should probably say that everyone is different. And I'm sure everyone's heard start low and go slow. And I'm a big proponent of that. So if you've never experienced, so let's talk about, if say you've never experienced cannabis or CIB, which I'll say, I mean, it's cannabis infused beverages. So I'm going to use that acronym a lot. What I would do is start really low. So start with something with, maybe 2.5 milligrams of THC. I liken that to, like I said before, a glass of Prosecco. So try something like that. Enjoy it like you would any other social beverage. So I love pouring it in a glass, putting on ice, garnish it with a lime or, some thyme, and see how you feel. So, 15 minutes, half an hour, see how you feel. Once you understand how you feel, you could potentially try another one. So if you haven't tried it before, I would approach it much like, you may approach, other adult beverages for the first time. If you're more experienced, what I would say is what we're seeing is that more experienced users are just loving that it is, something that can be brought into occasions where there's stigma around other, things like smoking. So we're seeing a lot of consumers who are familiar with cannabis actually come into beverages, bring it to parties. We get a lot of wonderful feedback about people saying, people actually who don't drink, who have said that this has been really game changing because the idea of going to a party and just holding a beverage like everyone else is something they felt like they couldn't, participate in before. So again, what I would say is, know yourself, start low, and then move on from there. But the other thing is it's fun. It's a brand, it's new, you can experiment, you can explore. And that's the other thing we're hearing from consumers. It's fun to explore something completely brand new. And this category didn't exist 2 years ago.
No. So what do you think inspired you about the industry in the first place?
Yeah, I have seen how cannabis has impacted people's lives in my life and friends and family. And so I actually, I believe in the power of the plant, and I believe that it can have an impact on people's lives. So it's really inspiring as a marketer to work in a category that you believe in. The other thing that really, really inspired me is the format, meaning beverages. Many people want to move away from smoking and inhalation. And they love, they like the idea of cannabis, they want to explore it, but they never want to smoke. And so I was also really, really excited about it being beverages. And I truly believe personally that beverages are best. It's best for me. It's kind of the best format for me. And so that's what really inspired me to join. Of course, joining to build a brand new category and industry with all the other amazing people in this space, build new brands, et cetera. But there was also something really personal about it for me.
Yeah. And that's so exciting when things are just so new. There's so many things that you're just like so open to and exploring and trying out, right? Especially during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So what do you think are some of the challenges the cannabis industry faces right now? I'm sure there are a few.
Yeah, there's significant challenges, which when I talk about the roller coaster, it makes it fun. You need a lot of resilience. We often say the industry and all the companies are building a plane as we're driving it, flying it. So some of the, as I'll talk about some of the challenges from kind of a education standpoint to begin with. highly, highly regulated. And we actually agree with a lot of the regulations, specifically around appealing to youth. We would never want that. Really, really important. We believe in it. But it is challenging to educate consumers, about a brand new category within the regulations. The main place we can educate is in the retailers, and there are fantastic retailers across Canada, but they have been hit very hard for COVID. So a lot of the cannabis retailers, they were not open for the entire year. They were shut down for a large majority of COVID. And so that has been really, really challenging in an emerging industry. So that's one area. I think the other area, and I'm going to be very top line, so I don't want to get technical, is that when cannabis was legalized, there was, of course, limits, right? There's limits to how much you can possess or buy. And the equation on beverages was based on how much liquid's in the bottle. So as a result, a consumer on average can't buy more than 5 beverages. That's super different than the experience with other adult beverages, right? You're used to going out and getting a 6-pack or a 12-pack or something. You might bring that to a party and share it and talk about it. Where because of some of those limits and the way they put in place, consumers can only really buy singles and up to 5. That's very strange compared to how a consumer participates in other categories. So that's been another challenge specific to beverage that we're hoping to work with some of our partners to evolve over the coming years. And so those are two of some of the bigger ones that we work through.
Yeah, definitely challenging, I'm sure. Still so new. I mean, it boomed like crazy in the last few years. And do you foresee any type of evolution in the cannabis industry within the next 5 years? What do you foresee?
Yeah, so some of the things like I'm very, very excited about is, I'll start with beverages. So, to date, a lot of the people coming to beverages are current users. They're, like I said, they're trying it for different occasions, and that's fantastic. It's been great. But I'm very, very excited when you look at the wider universe. There is huge purchase intent for cannabis infused beverages from potentials. People are very, very intrigued. They're really, really interested in this format. And so, boomers, women, a lot of different segments of consumers that right now aren't in the space, or their needs aren't being met in the space. And so I'm so excited for these new consumers to come in and understand what their needs are and how they might interact with kind of the space. Super excited about that. And I think it will definitely evolve over time.
Oh, definitely.
I think also, of course, we're watching, cannabis, Canada was first. And so we're really, watching what other countries do, US, but also European countries with legalization. And I think there's opportunity for Canada to really take a lot of leadership here, kind of export all their knowledge in this space and expertise into other global markets. So that's super exciting to watch, to see what happens, and expect there to be some shifts and changes in the next 5 years there as well.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, do you see any other countries that are really leading, the cannabis industry now, today, other than Canada?
Well, US is super interesting, but very fragmented. So it's really state by state. So somewhere like California, cannabis was legalized before Canada, but still not federally legalized. And so, it's kind of patchwork right now. So I think that's the country that everyone's watching most closely to understand how regulations might change over the coming years for the federal level.
Yeah. So with all its challenges, what do you think makes a good marketer or a good brand marketer?
I think I might have talked about it at the beginning, but the very best brand marketers put the consumer first in everything they do. And they know the consumer deeply. and they understand what motivates them and their needs and wants. And they wake up every day thinking about that. The second is like commitment to building the very best product, the really very best product to meet that consumer's needs. And that always changes depending who the consumer is. And that's what's really fun about Truss. We have such diverse brands, like the one XMG for the avid consumer, Little Victory for maybe a potential or light user. So build that best product that meets their needs, continuously improve it, make it better. And then third is I talked about kind of that idea of just, a brand as a person and having a purpose, having a strong point of view, be provocative. I think those three things are kind of the keys. And like I said before, they're not easy. It sounds simple. But that is, I truly believe that's what makes the very best marketers.
Definitely. I think it makes, brands stand out so much. So how important is brand affinity to you and your brand and trust?
Brand affinity is incredibly important. And what's happening in the cannabis industry is with all the regulations and with it being so new, it is not a key. It's not how consumers are making decisions right now. Right. So, if we talk about beverages, what we're finding is a consumer might come in and say, I want a high dose beverage, something with like 10 milligrams. And what do you have? Oh, I feel like something, lemony today, and I'll grab it. And so what's really interesting is it's not brands right now yet that are a key decision factor for consumers. And like I said, it's because it's new, it's because the regulations. But despite that, we still believe in building brands because we believe that that's what's the most important thing over the long run. It's not just about having a good product. It's actually about having a brand that resonates and connects with a consumer. So even though consumers aren't necessarily behaving that way, they're super exploratory. They kind of know what they want and they're just picking by like flavor, what they feel like that day. At Truss, we are actually building consumer brands. So, we have consumer profiles. We talk to consumers on an ongoing basis. We continue to evolve brands based on their needs and wants and how they're evolving. And they are evolving quickly because it's so new. And we're building brands with like personalities and trying to bring that like life in remarkable ways. We're trying to delight our consumers, and because we know that will come if we do that right. So I think some other companies, haven't necessarily taken that approach, but we believe in being consumer first, and over the long run, building the right brands for your consumer is going to be what makes you win. It's going to take us some time to get there.
Right. And it's such a busy space, right? So how do you think that what you're currently doing really makes you stand out? Like you said, what other people aren't really doing. How do you stand out in such a busy space?
Right now, what's driving this totally nascent category is innovation. What's new? And to be honest, it is fast. So it's not about, what's new this summer. Our retailers and our consumers saying, what's new this month? What's new this week? So innovation is going to be the biggest driver of this category in the coming years. Making sure that you're ahead of the game, you know what consumers want, and you get it in market very, very quickly. And then pivot when the consumer changes. So innovation and going at the speed of innovation is the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge. So it's very, very exciting. I think the other thing also is, working with the amazing retailers. That is the space for consumers to go in, speak to a knowledgeable bud tender, and get educated. So, how do you make sure that you're working with your partners, you're bringing beverages to life, they understand the brands and products, and they can make the right decisions for them. Those are two of the biggest areas for focus, for sure.
Yeah. And, speaking of bud tenders and just getting educated, do you find it a lot easier now that a lot of people can go in store and ask the questions instead of maybe emailing? Like, do you feel like people feel more comfortable being able to go into the space and talk through the products and really get to learn a lot more about?
Yeah, we're like a more experienced more experienced consumers will kind of go in and be very highly educated themselves and know what they want. But when we talk to, newer consumers or people who are like exploring beverages for the first time, they rely on that bud tender knowledge. And so that's something that has, as the stores have been closed, it was, either in some provinces curbside pickup, that has been missing. So the next year is going to be super, super important as consumers start going back in the stores, because they rely on bud tenders, they trust bud tenders. And so we're very, very excited to work with retailers and bud tenders to start, educating consumers about beverages and the opportunities those bring. Yeah, it's gonna be key, and it's something we've been of course missing as the stores. Many of the stores across Canada have been closed over the last year.
Oh yeah. No, it's key, I think, to just really learn a lot more about the products. So before I ask my final questions, I just want to encourage everyone to ask their questions in the Q&A box. I see a few here already, so that's great. So Lori, what's next for you, and what's next for Truss?
What's next for me is Truss. So next year is going to be a super important year. It's finally, the stores are open. This category has been out for a year. We can actually gather. So the other challenge with, other than stores, which I didn't mention, is that this is a social beverage, and we haven't been gathering. We haven't socialized for over a year. So we've launched a beverage that, that's perfect for social gatherings, and it hasn't happened. So we haven't had that word of mouth where you go to a cottage, it's like, what's that? It's a cannabis beverage. You start talking about and trying it. So the next year, we're super excited to actually start getting the word out, that word of mouth, and getting consumers to experience it. And so the second thing is then innovation. So we have launched 6 brands now. Our innovation pipeline, we have a 2-year innovation pipeline. We have twice as much next year as this year. And so really, really, we're going to be focused on bringing in the best innovation to consumers, the best tasting beverages, and the best experience. And so there's going to be a lot of exciting launches in the next 12 months coming from Truss Beverages.
So exciting. So is there anything that you're looking forward to doing after everything's, fully back to normal, fully open, after the pandemic is over? Is there something that you're really looking forward to do?
From a work standpoint, actually, we just started last week our return to work. And we always call ourselves a new kind of beverage company, cannabis infused beverages, and we have a new kind of culture. And so we've started with what we're calling Truss flexible work hours. We have something called Truss Wednesdays. They're twice a month, and it's when everyone gathers together in our space. We get together, we're creative together, we have great meetings. And then what we've done for everyone is flexibility. So there are people who have thrived working from home and discovered aspects of their life that they were always missing, commuting for all those years. We found others that really want to be together. So we've gone to completely flexible where our employees have a choice, whether they're going into our office space or whether they work from home. So from the business side, that's what I'm excited about as we kind of open up. And then on a personal side, I am just so excited to travel again. I have booked a trip, knock on wood, to go to Peru in March. Wow. And I just can't wait. I just can't wait to get on a plane and go somewhere I've never been before. So those are 2 things, I'm business and personal, that I'm most looking forward to.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, going back to work, I think for us, we haven't fully gone back to the office just yet, but having access to the team and just seeing each other in person is just so important. We actually hired a few people during the pandemic, and we didn't even meet. We haven't met people yet, so it's so weird to think that we can eventually all meet in person and actually get to hang out. So that's great. Yeah. Peru sounds so exciting. I haven't been there, but that's also on my list of places to travel to. So I hope all is good and you get to travel there very soon.
Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you. So on to some audience questions here. We have a question. Do you get a hangover from the beverages, like with alcohol, if you have one too many?
No. And that is I believe personally, one of the things I like most about it. It's a different experience. And what I find, I'll just talk personal experience. Like I said, everyone's so different. So if I have a few I like the low dose, I like the little victories and lower dose. I have like one or two of those. And the next morning, I do not experience the, hangovers that I would experience if I drank the same in terms of wine. And so we hear a lot from consumers that's one of the greatest benefits of CIB, that it's a great social beverage. They can relax, they can socialize, go to a party. And then the next day, they're not, in bed with that hangover. And so I think that's one of the things I'm really excited for consumers to start to discover, how they're different than some of the other adult beverages.
That's so good to know.
That's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, it is. So do you think cannabis beverages will ever be served in restaurants and bars?
Yeah, that's something we do hope so, right? That's how consumers will discover it. Right now, we don't have those regulations in place. There is work happening with different organizations to figure out what that regulatory framework would look like. And I think there's a lot of things to figure out. I mean, you could just think some of the questions: would it be served in a bar? Would it be more of a consumption lounge that's more cannabis focused? But as Truss, we would support that. If you think about bars and restaurants, they've proven for many, many decades how they can actually support safe consumption of alcohol. And so that kind of framework for cannabis-infused beverage, we think would make good sense in Canada. So we're hoping that may evolve in the coming years at Truss, and we would like to see that happen. And as marketers, it's one of the best ways to have word of mouth. I mean, how often have you gone to a restaurant and tried a new cocktail or drink or even food, and then incorporate it in your life? So more to come on that, but that is something that we are hopeful will start to evolve in the coming years.
That's pretty interesting. We'll see how it evolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are your products accessed through cannabis stores and or liquor stores?
Yeah. So that's a really good question too. So the cannabis beverages are in your local cannabis stores. Some people call them dispensaries. And so if you go in there, they would sell cannabis like flower and vapes, and they would also sell beverages. We do not sell cannabis in the same stores as alcohol in any province in Canada. So I'm assuming most people here are in Ontario with Toronto Life. So that would be, you could do it through the Ontario Cannabis Store, OCS, online you can order them, or you can go to your local cannabis retailer. If you're in Toronto, there's many of them on most of the main streets.
Yeah.
And they would be independent retailers.
Okay, great. Thank you. So how do you continuously address the desire for newness with seasonal beverages?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and it's really, really fast. So what's really interesting is a lot of the work we do is actually look at analog. So what are the big trends in beverages outside of cannabis infused beverages? What are consumers looking for? Are they looking for performance beverages? Are they looking for more healthy? Are they looking like something social and bubbly? And we apply some of that like trend watching to cannabis infused beverages. And then we layer it on kind of to the cannabis space, because if you just look at kind of more alcohol trends, you're missing out on this entire space of cannabis where people use it to relax. They might use it, at the end of a day, they might use it to be creative. And those are really, really new spaces. So what we do is we look at who are consumers and in what occasions might a cannabis beverage work for them. And then we kind of design beverages out of that. So if you think of an example, like there's a whole segment of consumers who use cannabis when they are being active and working out. Mm-hmm. So if you're using cannabis for that, what kind of beverage would you make that would make sense for them? What would they be looking for? So So it's that's how we stay ahead. We both look at trends from other categories. We look at trends within cannabis, and we try to figure out that occasion or sweet spot where a beverage makes more sense than some of the other cannabis segments. And I mean, a lot of it is just talking to consumers all the time, like both informally and formally.
Yeah, wow. So last question here. What are your thoughts on celebrity partnerships in the CIB space?
Um, so my thoughts are, in Canada, we cannot work with celebrities, influencers. We're very highly regulated from a marketing standpoint. So we wouldn't have that in our toolbox in Canada. But if I think about it more broadly, what I would say is that this is a really new category, and if there are people, celebrities that you trust, it's a good way to get the word out about something brand new. It's not something that we can do in Canada, but I actually think it would be quite effective in other markets if it were allowed.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of regulations, so you got to stick to that, right?
Right now, yeah,
For
definitely.
sure. So I don't see any other questions here, but this takes us to the very end of our chat. I really loved our conversation, Lori. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chantal. It was a fantastic talk. I really enjoyed it too.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank everyone as well for joining us today. Please enjoy your Halloween weekend. Look out for other Fireside Chats in your inboxes. Please stay safe, and I hope to see you all again very soon.